Okay, in 6.1 we're going to be talking about roots and radical expressions. Okay, so just a little refresher on what we did last time. 5 squared is 5 times 5, so 25. 5 cubed is 5 times 5 times 5, so 125. 5 to the fourth is 5 times 5 times 5 times 5, which is 625. Okay, we're going to be talking about nth roots now, where a and b are real numbers. N is always going to be positive, and a is going to be the nth root of b. So an example, we're going to be talking about things like this, where n is going to be called the index, and a is going to be called the radicand. So when we look at it, it's going to be looking at things that are going to look like this, or like this, or something like that. So if I were to break something down, let's say I do the square root of 16. Well, when we take the square root of 16, I know that that equals 4. But let's do it the long way, okay? I want to show you why that equals 4. So technically, there is a little 2 out here. Oops. The opposite of squaring is square rooting. So to get rid of that square root, we're going to have to square something in here. So what, if I square it, gets me 16? Well, 4 does. Okay? If I'm taking the square root of a squared, they cancel each other. That's how we get our answer to be 4. So if you don't see a number out here, there's going to be a 2, and then I'll show you some examples where there's 3s and 4s sitting out there. Okay, what is the real cube root of these 3 things? Well, cube means 3, so we're trying to find the cube root. So cube root looks like this. So first off, let's figure out when I cube it, it gets me 0.008. Well, if I try to guess a bunch of things, 0.2 is actually, if I cube it, gets me 0.008. So if I take the cube root, which is what I'm trying to do, of 0.008, if we break it down to get rid of the cube, we have to figure out what the cube is so that the 3's cancel. So that the cube root cancels with the cube, and that's how we get our answer to be 0.2. So the cube root of 0.008 is 0.2. So my next one, what when I cube it gets me negative 1,000? Well, negative 10 does. So if I'm trying to find the cube root of negative 10, or of negative 1,000, negative 10 cubed gets me that negative 1,000, so that my cube root and cube can then cancel. So my cube root of negative 1,000 is negative 10. My next one, if I do 1/3 cubed, it should get me it. So if I do the cube root of 1 over 27, so I need to get it so where I can cancel that cube root. Oops. So we're going to do this cubed so that they cancel each other. So my answer then is 1/3. Okay, my next one, what multiplies to get me negative 8? So I'm trying to get it cubed so I can get rid of the 3 on the outside there. So negative 2 cubed can get me 8 so that they cancel. So the cube root of negative 8 is negative 2. Okay, this one, I need to get rid of the 4 this time. So this time I'm trying to figure out what, when I take it to the 4th, gets me negative 1. Well, the only thing that gets me to negative 1 is when I multiply by negative 1. But if I take it to the 4th power, that's negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1, which is positive 4, or positive 1. Woo! Okay, that doesn't get me negative 1. So this one, we're going to say, not no solution, but doesn't work. You could say no solution. I'm fine with that. Because it would have an imaginary in it, okay? Because of that negative being in there, and we can't get to that 4th root of it. Okay? This time we're trying to get a cubed. So what when I cube it gets me negative 27? Well, that's negative 3. Those cancel, so my answer is negative 3. My next one, I'm trying to figure out something that when I take it to the 4th power, it gets me negative 81. Well, negative 3 can get me to 81, but the problem is when I take the 4th of it, take it to the 4th, it gets me positive 81, not a negative 81. So this one does not work. All right, last rule, nth roots of nth powers. Okay, so if I am looking and I am simplifying these, anytime I have this n being odd, I leave it as is. If it's even, we need to change it and have an absolute value in my answer. So anytime this n right here in front of my absolute value is even, we need to add the absolute values. So even, you need to add it. So if I simplify this, remember if I don't see a number out here, there's a 2. So when I do it, they should have 2's on the outside. So what when I square it gets me 16? Well, that's 4. If I'm trying to figure out the power, when I do power to a power, I multiply. So when I have an x in here, what when I multiply it by 2 gets me 8? Well, that's 4. So then, since I'm taking the square root, it cancels out these 2's. So my answer is 4x to the 4th. Okay, another way you could do it is when you're breaking down the x, if you just do 8 divided by 2, it should get you this number, your exponent that you want right there as well. It'll do the exact same thing. Okay, and then my answer, or my exponent out here, my index is even, and I said if it's even, we need absolute value marks. So I need to put this in absolute values. With this, if I take a negative and take it to the 4th power, it will always be positive. So technically for this one, I wouldn't need to have the absolute values in the end. If you have it, that's okay. Okay, my next one, I need to figure out the cubed this time. Okay, so what times 3 gets me 6? Well, that's 2. Or if you look, 6 divided by 3 is 2. When I do my b, what times 3 gets me 9? Or you could do 9 divided by 3 to get 3. So the 3's are going to cancel in this, so I have a squared and b cubed. If it's odd, I keep my answer as is, and I don't need to add absolute values. Okay, this time it's a 4th. So what times 4 gets me 8? Well, that's 2, or you could do 8 divided by 4 to get 2. What times 4 gets me 12? Well, that's 3, or you could do 12 divided by 4 to get 3. All of the 4's will cancel, so now I have x squared y cubed. It was an even, so this time I need absolute values. If I look and put a negative number in for x squared, it will always be positive, so if you want to simplify even further, you could do x squared, and then the absolute value really only needs to be on the y cubed. But I'm okay if you leave like this, because if you take the absolute value of a positive number, it's still going to be positive. Here, last one, cubed. So what times 3 gets me 12? Well, that's 4. Or you could do 12 divided by 3. What times 3 gets me 15? It's 5. Or you could do 15 divided by 3 to get 5. The cube root cancels out the 3's, so now I have a to the 4th, b to the 5th. If it's odd, I keep my answer as is. So my answer is going to be that.